Our speaker at commencement this evening is Dr. Steve Wrigley, Chancellor of the University System of Georgia. The Board of Regents named Dr. Wrigley as the system's 13th Chancellor effective January 1st of 2017. In his role, he oversees 28 public colleges and universities with an $8.4 billion annual budget and almost 49,000 faculty and staff, fulfilling the teaching, research, and public service mission to over 321,000 students from across the country and around the world. He currently serves on the Georgia-based Alliance of Education Agency Heads and is a member of the Georgia Wildlife Federation's board. Dr. Wrigley served as Executive Vice Chancellor of Administration for the University System of Georgia from June of 2011 until his appointment as Chancellor. As Executive Vice Chancellor of Administration, he oversaw the day-to-day operations of the system's budget, facilities, information technology services, human resources, legal affairs, and strategic planning units. Dr. Wrigley formerly served as Senior Vice President for External Affairs, as well as Vice President for Government Relations for the University of Georgia. He also served as Director of the Carl Vinson Institute of Government. Prior to his work in the University System of Georgia, he worked in Georgia's state government, including 5 years as Chief of Staff to former Governor Zell Miller. During his career, Dr. Wrigley has worked on a number of key issues, including the creation of the state's lottery and the Hope Scholarship Program. Georgia Tech students have greatly benefited from the Hope Scholarship. Since it began 25 years ago, almost 45,000 Hope and Zell Miller scholars have attended Georgia Tech, receiving more than $510 million in financial assistance. Dr. Wrigley earned his undergraduate degree from Georgia State University and his doctorate in history from Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois. Dr. Wrigley and his wife, Lynn, have 2 children and reside in Clark County. Please join me in welcoming Chancellor Steve Wrigley.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson, and thank you all for being here this evening for this wonderful occasion. I appreciate you not booing at the mention of the University of Georgia. I appreciate that very much. And it's special for me to be here tonight because my wife is here with me, and as Dr. Peterson indicated, I became Chancellor on January 1st and was invested on Wednesday in a special day. And the thing I've discovered about being Chancellor that's really nice is I get introduced more, and people say the nicest things about you when they introduce you. So it wasn't always the case. I am honored to be here and to participate in this wonderful occasion. To the graduates, congratulations. This is a great moment, a big milestone in your life, so please enjoy it. You will soon have a graduate degree from Georgia Tech. That degree reflects your hard work and your commitment to better yourself. It should also launch you on a lifetime commitment to better our society. You have completed your studies and are thus prepared to tackle a very complex world. With your achievement comes great responsibility. Since we are on the campus of one of the world's great universities with a deserved reputation for innovation in technology, I would like to talk a little about the interplay between technology and society and what our responsibilities are to both. The world has changed dramatically in the last 50 or 60 years, and you should ponder just how much more it will change in the coming 50 or 60. That may seem like a long time, but it really is not. And it is during these coming years that you will be responsible for shaping the world. And make no mistake, you will be responsible and do have a role to play in what that world will be like. With the breathtaking pace of change in recent years, it is often difficult for cultural and social organizations to adjust. One observer has noted that technology ignites change, while culture preserves stability. The two are at war to some extent. In his book, The Heavens and the Earth, Walter McDougall concludes, technology is always disruptive and creates a crisis for culture. What I would like to talk about tonight is how it is up to us to navigate that crisis when it occurs, harnessing what we invent to get the good out of it and minimizing the bad. Take, for example, something as ubiquitous today as global positioning technology, or GPS, which had its origins with the launch of the Russian satellite Sputnik in 1957, but has only become a dominant part of our everyday life since the year 2000. GPS was developed for military use following Sputnik and was made available for civilian use in the late 1990s with the introduction of the first mobile phone with GPS. The TomTom soon followed. And in the last 15 years, GPS has changed every aspect of our lives. Think how that one technology has changed so much about how we live every day. Not too long ago, if you took a driving trip, you used a paper map, which unfolded in complex ways and tore easily after a few uses. My dad taught me and my two brothers how to read a map. That seems archaic, I know, but most of us today cannot go anywhere unfamiliar without our phones telling us when and where to turn. And it likely means dads won't be teaching their kids how to read a map. So I think we lose something there. We also lose something, I think, in that we pay less attention sometimes how to get somewhere. The journey is still important. When I was growing up, my parents had no idea where I was or what I was doing. They could not call me or text me. If I needed to call them, I had to find a payphone, if any of you remember those. Now my wife can track our 20-year-old son's location in real time, wherever he goes in the world. That's more than a little scary for him and us. He complains to me about it as he has lost a little privacy and mystery. We have gained too much information about what the heck he's up to. As with most technology, there are trade-offs. The invasiveness of GPS is certainly balanced by the improved knowledge of weather and climate that satellites have brought us. Emergency responders can find the location of someone who is in need without even being told the address. Farmers can precisely water and fertilize crops merely by programming their laptops. All of these wonders are what Sputnik and subsequent technology have wrought. Most for good, but not all. And this is where we come in. We can decide what uses there are for what we invent. So be ever mindful of that. Technology has accelerated our lives in so many ways, especially in communications. In 1799, when George Washington died in Virginia, it took a week for the news to reach New York City. Can you imagine that? The most famous man in America died, and it took a week for the news to travel 225 miles. Over 150 years later, within half an hour of the death of John F. Kennedy, 2/3 of Americans had learned the tragic news. And a few years ago, when Michael Jackson died, the entire world heard the news within a couple of hours. In the intervening 200+ years between George Washington and Michael Jackson, letter writing as the main means of communicating over distances yielded to the telegraph, which begat the telephone, which led to televisions and live shots, and microchips and cell phones, and now, yes, instant messaging, so that at hardly any time in our lives are we out of instant touch unless we find a remote spot on Earth without cell service, or unless you drive up I-85 north of Atlanta. This flood of technology has changed how families interact. Homes used to have a single television or radio, and as a family, you would sit around and watch or listen together, somehow agreeing on what to watch. That give and take, a routine part of a family's existence, largely lost. Now everyone has their own access to entertainment and news through what we call personal devices. It is a new concept. The emphasis on individualizing every aspect of society is freeing in so many ways, but also can be isolating and disruptive to socializing. Have you ever wondered why Steve Jobs called his invention an iPhone and not a Wii phone? It is designed for individual adaptation, but ironically has also promoted the greatest human interaction in history via social media. But we need to be careful our devices do not drive us to retreat under our headsets, enjoying one another's company only via text or FaceTime or Twitter. We have likely lost something in the bargain, but have gained instant access to vast amounts of information and have the ability to communicate with anyone, anywhere in the world, at any time. One problem is the vast diffusion of information now makes it seem as if all information is the same quality, the same accuracy, the same truthfulness, and that is not the case. So again, this is where we come in. Just because it is on the web, or someone in authority or on Facebook says it, does not make it so. So be wise about sources of information. There is a story some of you may have heard about a distinguished British scientist speaking to a civic group about the solar system and gravitational forces and how the Earth rotates on its axis. At the end of the lecture, an elderly man stood up and commented, "You are a very clever scientist, but everyone knows that the Earth spins around on a plate that is balanced on the back of a large turtle." The scientist chuckled to himself and then politely asked the man, "Well then, what is the turtle resting on?" The man replied immediately, "You are a very clever man indeed, but everyone knows it's turtles all the way down." So be careful about your sources of information. Perhaps in no area has advanced technology played a greater role in changing society than in the spread of democracy. In 1960, there were only about 32 functioning democratic governments worldwide. Today, there are more than 120. While the appeal of democratic values is well known, they existed for centuries. What changed? The ability to communicate to millions of people instantly can overcome any barrier leaders committed to authoritarianism wish to put up. It is simply not possible to shield citizens from ideas or to control information. With no monopoly of information, it is very hard to hide the truth. This is a blessing indeed of technological advances, being an enabler of the spread of good ideas. In addition, the ability to organize protest, to inspire a response from thousands and millions of people is also instant. The ease of questioning authority and organizing against it has transformed democracy and relations between individuals and big entities, governments, corporations, entire nations. The democratization of information undermines any elite effort to control what people know and think. Claims of governments can be refuted in real time. If an airline tries to pass off the aggressive removal of a passenger as reaccommodation, the entire world watches the video and sees something very different. So the democratization of information and technology is upsetting many, many aspects of the old order. Technology has been an agent of cultural and social change. Only 3 million televisions were in U.S. households in the early 1950s, but 10 years later, there were more than 55 million. In the 1960s, television allowed people to get an up-close look at their country, and this awareness contributed to change. It is easy to ignore segregation when it exists miles and miles away, but much harder when pictures of violence that do not square with your beliefs about what America means are brought into your living rooms. President Lyndon Johnson attributed his downfall to the CBS News anchor Walter Cronkite's repudiation in early 1968 of the notion that the war in Vietnam was going well. The 3 major networks dominated the news then, which is hard to believe today, and Cronkite was the king of broadcasters. During one evening broadcast in early February of 1968, Cronkite opined it was time to negotiate an end to the war. President Johnson was watching in the White House and reportedly said, "If I've lost Cronkite, I've lost Middle America." 4 weeks later, Johnson announced he would not run for president. It was a stunning example of how new technology can alter the social, political, and cultural landscape of a nation. Invention, thus, is an awesome responsibility. Rapid advances in knowledge and technology have altered everything from life expectancy to forms of government. Unfortunately, these same technologies can be enablers of bad ideas and behavior, for displays of violence, for advancing hate, for destroying reputations. And this, again, is where we come in. Technology and invention are life-altering in every way. They change how we govern ourselves, how we understand one another, how we interact as friends and families. But we can be in charge. Saturday Night Live has enjoyed a revival recently, but I recall when it first went on the air in the late 1970s. There were a few smart skits called What If? And one was called What If Napoleon Had a B-52 Bomber at the Battle of Waterloo? John Belushi played Napoleon and was toured through the plane by the captain, Dan Aykroyd. It was all hysterically funny as Napoleon wandered wide-eyed through the plane, pondering whether to drop a nuclear bomb on the British and Prussian armies below. But beyond the humor, there is one great lesson from that skit. Someone had to decide whether to use the technology. We do not have to be at the mercy of what we invent. We can use advances to make our world better, as we have by improving many things from farming techniques to spreading democracy. But the acceleration of everything can affect our judgment, our decision-making, and thus the quality of the world we live in. Sometimes we just need to give it a rest. So please do not email me and then send me a text to tell me that you sent me an email. It is hard to imagine how much our lives will change in the coming decades. My plea to you is don't just let change happen to you or to this world. Seize it, help harness and direct it so that you leave the place better than you found it. Remember, the earth really does not rest on turtles all the way down. Congratulations to you all, and all the best to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wrigley, for that message and for your leadership of the University System of Georgia.